back to another video. This weekend we're off to explore a small portion of the Ned Kelly touring route, and we'll discover some of the significant sites connected to the infamous bushranger. Now I'll put a link somewhere here on the screen if I can work it out, otherwise it'll be in the description box of the video. But the Ned Kelly touring route extends from Melbourne all the way through Victoria and into Jerilderie, and it allows for a deep dive into a fairly wild piece of Australian history. Now we're about 20 minutes out from our first stop of the morning, so we'll catch you then. Bye! Alright, so today we've stopped in Greta in Victoria, which is a 20k or a 15 odd minute drive south of Wangaratta. And it was here that the then 23-year-old Ned Kelly and his brother Dan Kelly, just 17 years old, were involved in an incident on the family's Greta farm. Now, Constable Fitzpatrick had, with a warrant, had come to the farm in order to arrest Dan Kelly on the charge of horse theft. Constable Fitzpatrick claimed that Ned Kelly had shot him in the wrist and that Ned Kelly's mother, Ellen Kelly, had assaulted him with a shovel. Ellen then went on to serve 3 years at the Beechworth jail for the attempted murder of the constable. Ned and Dan Kelly, now wanted for the assault on the constable, then went into hiding at a site near Bullock Creek in the Wombat Ranges. They were joined shortly thereafter by their friends Joe Byrne and Steve Hart, and I believe that this is considered the first initial formation of the infamous Kelly Gang. So we're going to head just a little bit further down this road to the Greta Cemetery, which is the final resting place of Ned Kelly. Okay, so we're back on the road. We had a bit of a wander around the Greta Cemetery there. It is the final resting place of Ned Kelly. He was buried there in an unmarked grave. Dan Kelly, obviously also a member of the Kelly gang and brother to Ned Kelly, and Steve Hart, I believe, is also buried there. Now they're all buried in unmarked graves, and I believe the main reason for that is to dissuade souvenir hunters, as macabre as that sounds. So yeah, we had a bit of a wander around there. Now again, I don't know if I mentioned it, but Ned Kelly was actually laid to rest there in the Greta Cemetery in 2013. So a fair bit of time passed from his execution in 1880 to him reaching his final resting place at the Greta Cemetery. And so the story behind that is that after his execution, he, with 40 or so other prisoners, were buried in a narrow graveyard on what is now the Old Melbourne Jail. Then in April 1929, after the closure of the Old Melbourne Jail, a part of the site was getting developed for the new Melbourne Police Headquarters. So they exhumed the remains of the prisoners and transferred them out to the grounds of Pentridge Prison and buried them in 2 mass graves. Then it wasn't until 2011, about 3 years after an archaeological team began searching for the remains of those prisoners in those 2 mass graves, that it was finally announced that a near complete skeleton had been identified as Ned Kelly's. Now, there's been quite a bit of controversy around Ned Kelly's skull, and unfortunately the whereabouts of the skull remain a mystery to this day. So if you were interested in exploring any more of Ned Kelly's story, we would highly recommend a visit to the Old Melbourne Jail. We would recommend allowing a few hours to really take in the history of the place. Obviously it allows for a deep dive into Ned Kelly's story, including the mystery around his skull, but it obviously also covers many of the stories of the men, women and children that were incarcerated there through the operational years of the jail. Now we are back on the road and we are heading out to what's going to be our final destination for this trip, which is Stringybark Creek free camping, which is only a short walk over to the Stringybark Creek Historical Reserve. we've arrived here at Stringybark Creek free camp, and for our first night here I'm going to whip up a beef and Guinness stew. So first I'm going to do is prep the vegetables. So 2 onions, it burns. Right, so you just need to roughly chop those onions. Oh, it's so sad. Oh my god. Alright, 3 carrots. I've already peeled these. You want to cut them into about 1 centimetre pieces. 3 cloves of garlic crushed up. We've gone with beef chuck. So we've got approximately just over 1 kilo. So you want to have your meat cut into about 5 centimetre chunks. Now, my intention was to cook this on the Dutch oven. Problem there, we forgot the Dutch oven, didn't we? So luckily I already had the Weber casserole dish already packed. So we'll go with the Weber casserole dish. Alright, so meat is cut up. Few slices of bacon. I'm using shortcut. Dice that bacon up. Just going to pat the meat dry before we salt and pepper it. Alright, and then just giving that a generous seasoning of salt and pepper. Alright, now it's out to the Weber to start to brown the beef. I'll talk you through the steps when we're out there. Alright, so I've got the Weber set to medium heat. I've put the large Weber casserole dish directly onto the grill plates because I've got to do a bunch of steps before we actually put it onto slow cook. So what you want to do is you want to brown your meat in batches. Make sure not to crowd the dish. Alright, so now we're going to cook the garlic and the onion for about 3 minutes. So once you feel like your onion is sufficiently softened, you then want to add your bacon. We're going to leave that in there for about 2 to 3 minutes. Alright, then add in your carrots. Alright, so now for the all-important ingredient, your Guinness beer. Now, this is 470. I'm going to put probably, 4/5 of that in. I've got to be mindful of how much room I've got in the large casserole dish for liquid. So Ben might get lucky and get the last sip or so. There you go, honey. Go nuts. And then you want 3 cups of chicken broth. Just a full one. And then you want about 4 tablespoons of tomato paste. So I'm just going to put the whole thing in.
Why measure anything?
Give that a mix. So now we're going to also return the beef to the pot. And so now we just want to add some thyme. So if you've got fresh thyme, go about 2 or 3 sprigs. We're camping, I don't have fresh thyme, so I'm going to go some dried thyme. And I'm going to put about a teaspoon of dried thyme in there. I think that's the equivalent of about 3 sprigs of fresh thyme. And if you have it, go in with 2 bay leaves. Give that a good mix. So lid going on. Temp going down to medium to high. Lid shutting. See you in 2 hours. Alright, so I've got that beef and Guinness stew cooking away on the Weber there. It's got another 20 or so minutes until I take the lid off to further reduce the sauce. So what I'm going to do is put together a beer damper or a beer bread. Now my intention, as I said at the start, was to do the beef and Guinness stew in the Dutch oven and therefore the beer bread in the Weber, but because we forgot the Dutch oven, we've had to change it up.
Who forgot it? Who forgot it?
I feel like we both forgot it. Okay. So, which means I'm doing the beer bread in the caravan oven. So I'm going to go ahead and heat that one up to about 180 degrees. So you want 2 cups of self-raising flour, 3.5 tablespoons of sugar, And about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So again, I'm just going to eyeball that one. All right, mix your dry ingredients together. And now you're going to go in with your beer. So again, we're using a Carlton Dry. So just under a cup. So again, Ben gets the rest of the Carlton Dry. Right. Then pour that in and combine that. A little bit more beer. A little bit more beer. Alright, so I've just turned that over onto a floured surface. I'm just going to knead that a little bit. Possibly just sprinkle a little bit extra flour there. Sous chef.
On the board?
Just a tiniest little bit on the thing. Yeah, too much. Take it away. Thank you.
Eat it?
No, thank you.
Okay.
So we've got our little dough. So we're just going to shape that into a bit of an oval there. Alright. We're going to put that into our pre-greased loaf tray. So we're 2 hours in. It's coming along really nicely. So now we want to see that sauce reduce. So we'll leave the lid off now and cook it for another at least an hour. Right, bread is going on. And that's going to need an hour.
How long's it been on, Sean?
3 hours now for this.
3 hours total, an hour with the lid off. Seems to be reducing nicely.
So we're going to take that in. And don't forget, if you've put your bay leaves in, don't forget to take your bay leaves out. So how good does that look? That
amazing.
Looks amazing. All right, now to serve up.
So now we're going to feast ourselves like kings. See you tomorrow. Good morning.
Good morning. So we're up to take the short walk from the Stringybark Creek free camping over to the historical reserve, which is, what did you say? Maybe a 2 minute, maybe a minute walk. So this is Stringybark Creek Historical Reserve. This is about 50 kilometres south of Benalla and a 70 to 80 kilometre drive from Wangaratta, depending on which route you take. And this is the site of a deadly shootout that would forever etch the Kelly Gang into the nation's psyche. Now, if we go back to October 1878, a small police search party had made camp here in their search for the Kelly Gang, who were wanted after the incident that we discussed yesterday in Greta involving Constable Fitzpatrick. But little did they know that they were walking into a deadly ambush. The Kelly Gang had been hiding out at a site at Wombat Ranges after the incident in Greta. Now, Wombat Ranges is essentially a mountainous area around Benalla and Mansfield. The Kelly Gang members surprised the police, leading to a chaotic and brutal confrontation, which by the end had resulted in the deaths of 3 officers. Sergeant Kennedy, 36 years old, Constable Scanlan, 34 years old, and Constable Lonergan, 36 years old. With a 4th officer, Constable McIntyre, able to escape on horseback back to Mansfield to sound the alarm. It was a devastating event that sent shockwaves through the colony, and within weeks, the Kelly Gang members were declared outlaws in an act passed by the Victorian Parliament. And what that meant is they could basically be shot and killed without warning or surrender. Standing here today, it's hard to imagine the violence that unfolded. The quiet beauty of the place belies the dramatic events of that day. So we're going to take the Stringybark Creek Historical Loop Walk, which is 1.4 kilometres, and follows the path set out by Sergeant Kennedy and Constable Lonergan as they attempted to escape the ambush by the Kelly gang.
So the Kelly tree that we just saw was a local farmer's choice who lived here. He said, okay, use that tree as the memorial. We need a memorial here. A lot happened here. All the previous trees that had bullet holes and that in them over time have been harvested, and termites had eaten them, never fallen down. So replica face shield on the front of that, and it's grown over it. All right, so this is our second night here at Stringybark Campground or Reserve, I think.
It's a lovely campground, very well marked out. The sites are really large and pretty obvious, so scattered throughout the area are well-defined camp or fireplaces. Most of them have like a cooking attachment to them, so kind of an extension arm with chains that you can hang your cooking or your Dutch ovens off, and grill plates. So there's a fair few of them throughout the place, and if you assume that every campsite's got its own fireplace, the campsites are quite large. There's 2 drop toilets here, one on this side of that kind of oval or rounded reserve and one on the other side. There's also a fair few picnic tables around as well. So dogs are allowed, but they have to be on a lead and obviously clean up after your dog.
Plenty of wildlife. We've seen some large wombat holes right behind our caravan here. Last night, come out to take Charlie to the toilet, and it sounded like a very large roo right behind the van. Plenty of stuff
and
going
right
on.
now we're looking at some magpies and a kookaburra on the ground together, so a bit of a menagerie here.
Access to get in here, it was pretty, the road's very, very easy to follow. It does turn to dirt for about the last 20 or 15 kilometres after Tatong. Yeah, after Tatong it turns to gravel. A lot of corrugations at the moment, but it only takes a grader to go over that to fix it, so could be fixed at any stage. But yeah, the road's very easy to get in. Caravan of any size, RVs, whatever, no issues getting in here. And then the campsites, as Shell said, while they're not marked like a caravan park, there are so many different areas where you can pull in depending on how big a vehicle you got. So yeah, we got this in one of the furthest corners and we had no issues at all.
Yeah. Obviously a really natural bushland setting though, so one thing to be mindful of is if you have Starlink and you want to run your Starlink, you're going to have some difficulty finding a spot here just because of the tree cover. We popped it up just to test it out and it's probably been patchy at best. We assume that generators are permitted. We haven't seen a sign indicating otherwise. And this is a free camp, so completely free.
No charge.
We haven't even seen a donation box, so...
You just got to remember, you got to take your rubbish with you. There is no skip bins or anything out here.
Yeah.
Just as Shell said, there's 2 toilet facilities, but no bin facilities with them. So take everything that you bring in with you.
Leave no trace.
That's right. One thing we'll ask, please press the subscribe button below if you're enjoying our videos, and then you'll be notified every time we upload a new one. So do that for us. That'd be great.
All right, we're going to probably wrap this video up here, guys. The next couple of videos are going to be a throwback to our Northern Territory road trip that we took back in 2023. So we hope you enjoy those, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye. Yeah.